ladies and gentlemen, this is the Right Guys podcast, and the Democrats just keep on screwing things up. And now your hosts, Josh Hammerling and Max McGuire.
Welcome back, the Right Guys podcast. My name is Max McGuire, here with Mr. Producer Josh Hammerling. Lots to get into, so let's dive right into it. The devastation from this hurricane. Incredible. There was a, let me see if I can find it actually. Me and my son and other family members went to this resort in the Tampa area. And I showed my son a picture of it, and he was sad. He's like, "That was the last place I ever loved." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" but he like seeing the resort like devastated. They'll rebuild it, but yeah. Absolute devastation, tremendous storm surge, and just the sheer amount of water that got dumped inland as this storm paved its way through. I mean, we can see in the map what it looked like for power outages. You can tell exactly where the worst of this storm hit.
Yeah.
This is an older map from 2 days ago, but still, I mean, that was the path through. And as it's just dumping all of this water into South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida. The devastation. This I believe is from North Carolina. The flooding, entire towns, entire cities, small cities have just been wiped out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
have you ever experienced storm surge where it's about 2 or 3 inches, right? It's at your feet.
Yeah.
You can barely stand, right? You can barely stand.
Yeah.
This was at 3 feet, gang. That came up to your waist on most of us, right?
Yeah.
Just absolutely devastating water. And water is the most powerful force on the planet that we get to experience on the surface. And just look at this.
That is a river.
Oh my gosh.
And all of that debris comes from the trees and the houses and the buildings that all got destroyed and got all washed out to the river. All the boats in there. There's some houses that float away in there. Docks. Just
Torches.
The devastation here is tremendous. Now, if there was ever a time for the federal government to help, this would be it, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what federalism is for. This is what the federal government is for.
Yeah.
Joe Biden, though, and this is kind of the title of our show today. I was shocked when I heard this. You got to take anything Joe Biden says with a grain of salt, but every now and then he says something so straightforward, you can't let them fact check their way out of it. Say, oh, he meant to say this. He was asked point blank if these states could expect any additional resources, and flat out he said no. And here's the video from on the tarmac. A little hard to see, but we'll recap it when it's done.
We're giving them all everything that we have. We're on the ground ahead of time, so we're working hard.
Are there any more resources the federal government could be giving them?
No, we've given them, we have pre-planned a significant amount of it, even though they didn't ask for it yet. Hadn't asked for it yet.
So let's recap this.
Hold
Put
on.
people on the ground ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And he says there's no additional assets, resources planned. And he's kind of shifting the blame that they didn't ask for it yet. Now,
blows my mind.
The FEMA resources that are on the ground, we know them because we've seen what happens in the wake of these storms. Mm-hmm. FEMA will roll into cities with mobile shower units, mobile washers and dryers, right?
Oh, yeah.
Temporary housing for people to live in. Saying that I pre-sent the linemen and the washers and dryers and the food resources to North Carolina ahead of time doesn't change the fact that the devastation. I mean, like, we can admit no one expected that devastation.
No,
it was not predictable that a storm going inland that far would just be that devastating. It was unpredictable, right? To say that they're only getting what we pre-planned is disgusting.
Does he want him to come and beg?
Yeah.
I mean, do I have to come with the hands out? Is that what he's getting at here? I'm not sure. I hope he doesn't mean that.
Let's play it again.
But I
Well, you finish your thought and we'll play it again.
no, play it. I'm just pissed off at him.
We've given them all everything that we have. We're on the ground ahead of time, so we're working hard.
Are there any more resources the federal government could be giving them?
No, we've given them. We have pre-planned a significant amount of it, even though they didn't ask for it yet. Hadn't asked for it yet.
So just so we're clear, Joe Biden declared made the federal emergency declaration for North Carolina more than 2 days after the storm made landfall. So the idea that he put all of the resources there ahead of time was a lie, because even he realized that 2 days after landfall, he had to make an emergency declaration to send resources, which is why it's disgusting to hear him on the tarmac saying that they're not getting anything else. They haven't asked for anything else. What are you talking about? I mean, they asked for anything else, so they're not getting anything else?
Max, are their phones working so they can ask for anything else? Can they communicate their needs at this time? As far as I know, the power is out.
That's the other thing, right? We showed the power outage, the map. They don't have telecom. And I mean, if you want to blame someone, I mean, I guess you can blame the FCC. Why? Because SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, had won a bid to give North Carolina 19,552 Starlink devices. They'd won the bid. The FCC revoked the bid.
No.
4 years ago. Yep, revoked the bid. This is when they were going after Elon Musk. Revoked the bid. So
could you imagine having 19,000
now they don't have it
out there right now? Even if you ran it off a generator, you'd be able to start making
they're battery powered. They're battery powered. They're battery powered, right? You can, you can run them off solar. Yeah, no, it's very easy to run in the field. You and I were talking about it before we went live, how great it would be to have one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd go camping a ton more if I had one.
Right. I mean, yeah, you got internet. It makes everything better. But they could have had 19,000 of those units present for this. And FEMA could have just rolled those out.
Well, that wouldn't be FEMA. This would have been just right to North Carolina. So North Carolina would have seen it coming, would have deployed all these. I mean, it's one of these things that you saw it coming, and you don't like playing Monday morning quarterback on these things, because you can't really blame a president for what happens after a hurricane. But again, he made the emergency declaration 2 days after landfall. And what's he been doing all weekend? This is what Joe Biden's been doing all weekend. This is what Joe Biden, he's been on the beach. He's been on the beach.
Looking. Like, I was mad before I got on the show because I've been watching the stuff that's been coming out of their camp. When you show me this picture, it reminds me that this president doesn't give a damn about anybody, because the president's supposed to be out there saying everything's going to be okay. We're going to be rolling stuff out to you right now. You will see our presence and we will be there. You will feel our presence as we show up and give to you. But I'm not hearing that. Or even the it's going to be okay moments, right? Like telling kids, or like a fatherly person saying, it's going to be okay, gang. You're going to get through this. We're going to get through it together. And this is what we get.
He's on the beach. He spent the weekend on the beach. Kamala Harris spent the weekend fundraising. She was hobnobbing with wealthy donors. She finally canceled her campaign events to go back home, to go back to Washington, D.C., to pretend that she's actually doing something. And this is the picture that they released. I don't like getting too nitpicky with these things, but the papers in front of her are blank, and the headphones are not plugged into the phone. So, like, is it possible their headphones are plugged into something else? Sure. It's weird to have headphones on when you say you're on a briefing call. And I guess it's possible they could Photoshop the papers so you couldn't see what's on them.
Yeah, maybe,
but it seems almost worse to put white blank papers in front of her.
Yeah. Because
it's not like it's classified.
Yeah,
it's staged. Obviously staged.
If you give her the benefit of the doubt that the phone she's on is her super secret phone and she's got it in her lap so you can't, quote, see it, right? I'll give her that benefit of the doubt. But what is she writing there? Is she just scribbling circles over and over and over? I doubt that she's the intellect. Yeah, right. She's not the intellectual powerhouse this photo is supposed to tell us she is.
No. And and Donald Trump went there. And it's always hard to gauge whether or not you should go as a candidate, as a politician. if you're going to go, you don't want to hinder, you don't want to cause more harm than good, right? So Donald Trump made the decision, obviously, not to go to North Carolina because, as we just showed on screen, you can't get a president there. You can't get anyone there. The first people there need to be first responders,
Yes.
and not President Trump, right? But he went to an area of Georgia that was hit hard, but they're in the rebuilding stage now. They didn't get flooded out. They just got really bad storm damage. And he was asked whether he's coordinating with Biden. Now, he's out of office, right? So he doesn't do anything, but as a private citizen, he's donating
his own resources.
He's donating his own resources to help get these communities up and back on their feet. But he gave a funny answer. Here's the answer he gave for where Biden is.
Reached out to President Biden about federal relief efforts?
No, I haven't reached out to him. No, I think he's sleeping right now, actually.
Probably right.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
And again, we saw this was the weekend. This was his weekend, right? This storm made landfall, 4 days ago?
Yeah.
This storm made landfall on a Friday. The idea that the president of the United States had a beach weekend, it's insane. It's insanity. You know, he's not running. He's checked out. He's done, right? He's done.
Yeah.
But Kamala Harris kept fundraising and only canceled her stuff today.
So why didn't she take the presidential tone if she wants to be president? Why wasn't she out there telling people it's going to be okay? Why wasn't she out there saying, we're going to get you what you need?
She mentioned it in her speech. She did all of the platitudes like, oh, our thoughts and prayers go out to them. That's fine.
And what crap, too. She's got the bully but she could be on national TV in a phone call telling people it's going to be okay. But she didn't.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump shows up with his own time and money. Just saying.
Yeah. And this is where the cynic in me comes out. It has been well documented under Biden and Harris that they want federal emergency relief to be doled out on the basis of race. It's well documented that they believe that equity should have a role in who gets emergency relief, who gets emergency disaster relief.
Interesting.
It's not making this up. That's what they've wanted to bring into FEMA. I mean, I have where is it? Like beyond that, you go to FEMA and you see their strategic plan. Goal 1 is equity.
Yeah.
Right.
Wait, what?
Like, I'm not making this up. This is their strategic plan. Goal 1 is equity. Let me actually get to the FEMA so we can actually, because this is just a
1.2 says it's people first, and then 1.3 says it's equitable
outcomes.
So what does that mean? What does that mean?
Okay, so this is a real website. That was a screenshot, but this is a real website. Equitable outcomes. Okay. A people-first approach removes barriers to access and is beneficial to everyone. On its own, however, this approach is not sufficient to break the cycle of disasters, worsening societal inequalities and exposing underserved communities to increased risk. These are systemic differences in society that access alone cannot fix. Underserved communities experience differences in how prepared they are to respond to disasters, how well their homes have been adapted to mitigate against local hazards, and how quickly their communities are able to resume social and economic life after a major event. FEMA must direct its resources to eliminate disparities in these outcomes.
What does that even mean? Because if
FEMA,
look at the disaster we had. Was anybody prepared for that? Was anybody else?
FEMA assistance is not designed to solve societal inequalities. However, by intentionally directing resources to communities most in need, FEMA will be able to counteract systemic disaster inequities. What does this mean? Oh, under this initiative, a minimum of 40% of certain federal benefits will be prioritized to disadvantaged communities. What does this mean? If a storm hits 2 towns, right? Imagine a world where there's 2 towns, train tracks run right between them, right? There's one side of the tracks, there's the other side of the tracks. One community is white, one community is majority black. The storm does equal damage to both of these communities. What this FEMA equity plan says is that the federal government will need to give the Black community more resources, because it's going to be harder for the Black community to get on its feet, because the Black community suffers systemic structural racism to make life harder for them. So the idea is, if the storm hits 2 cities and you have $1 million, you don't split 50-50, right?
Yeah.
Or you don't say, okay, what property is most valuable? Let's fix that. No, they're saying, okay, maybe 60% goes to the Black community, 40% goes to the white community.
Yeah, it feels like it's being racist on so many different
Yes.
levels.
Yes.
Against white people and Black people. So Black people
Yes.
only give 40%. I mean, if that's what it came down
Yes.
to. And it would be by their own hand, right? It would be by their own decisions. Insane. Talk about trying to create a racist-free environment, but yet the very laws that governs what they do are on their face racist.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up, man. We couldn't write novels with this kind of weird stuff in it. And here we are looking at like true disaster. If you guys look at Florida and the Carolinas right now, it's like an apocalypse.
Yeah.
Everything has been destroyed. Everyone says you got to get ready for the end of the world. Well, the end of the world is happening right now for those people living there, right? The end of the world has happened.
So according to the 2020 census, the Asheville, North Carolina, the metropolitan area, is 74% white. That's
Wow,
not a
it's
very
totally
diverse
disparate.
place. That's
No.
not a very diverse place. So under this FEMA equity program, if you have Asheville, North Carolina, that is not very racially diverse, and Atlanta, Georgia, that is more racially diverse, under this plan, according to what the government has put on paper, resources should go to the Black communities to help them get on their feet, because they need a little bit extra help.
So what if there was a disparity in the amount of damage per town? Like
They'll say that
there could be so much with this.
Yeah, what they'll say that is that, of course, there's a disparity. White people live in nicer houses, and that shouldn't change the fact that Black people are home. I mean, there's some truth to that, right? I think one of the biggest shams we got going is flood insurance. I mean, it's absolutely necessary if you live in one of these communities.
Yeah.
But the idea that you can buy a multi-million-dollar house on the shoreline that you know is going to get hit, and you get guaranteed flood insurance as long as you put it on stilts and do everything. And then when the hurricane does hit, you're just completely covered. I mean, it is something that very wealthy people take advantage of.
Yeah.
To build homes in areas that you know they're going to get hit, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the video. It was from the last hurricane that skirted up the East Coast. Did you see the North Carolina house that just fell into the water?
Yeah, I remember that one. And this blow play as it was slowly making its way in and then just collapsed. And like that was somebody's home, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it just makes you think that, I mean, how they'd start doling out this money. You'd have to have somebody on the ground too, making the calls about who's more disparaged than another, wouldn't they?
I mean, this was one of the houses.
Oh, the other
this
one
is
dodged?
This is actually just this week. Now that's terrible, right? That's terrible. My heart goes out to them. Someone was just devastated. They lost everything. They bet you they have flood protection.
Probably.
But if you look at a lot of these houses in North Carolina, Outer Banks and different areas of North Carolina, they're built like the beaches are under their home.
Yeah.
And like it doesn't take much for the storm surge to come under their home. It is very obvious that this is going to happen. We need to look at how we do this, because there's a lot of legitimate gripes with the way that flood insurance is run. Meanwhile, there are everyday Americans who don't qualify for insurance, can't afford it. It's just there's a lot that needs to go into it. But that we're not going to do our show on that.
But the FEMA reaction to it, though, like it would give them so much power to say yes and no over disaster. They can make like an entire neighborhood come back before another, right?
Yeah.
Talk about being able to wield massive power is what this has done.
Yeah. Equity must be baked into the front end of the federal declaration process, not an afterthought. Critical to the process is for decision makers to be intentional in all phases of disaster management cycle to minimize discriminatory actions to prevent undesired outcomes that plague underserved and marginalized communities. This is a really fancy way of saying when you have the option to help two communities, maybe throw a few more dollars at the minority community because they just need more help.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure there's some truth to that. But this is inherently racist. FEMA's goal should be to help everyone, to get everyone back on their feet.
Yeah.
The idea that FEMA has finite resources and that some of those resources might actually be earmarked on the basis of race is insane. And it mirrors what Biden did with federal farm aid, right? He tried to instill programs to only give federal assistance to minority farmers, which was insane. It was unconstitutional, struck down, right? For whatever reason, this is what they're running on. And it's just so obviously unfair, unconstitutional, and racist. Here's another clip from Trump's visit this morning.
The federal government is not being responsive. They're having a very hard time getting the president on the phone. He won't get on, and of course the vice president, she's out someplace campaigning, looking for money. So they have to be focused over here. This is a really bad one. And the governor's doing a good job, but he's having a hard time getting the president on the phone. They're being very non-responsive.
Now, the governor came in and said, I just spoke to Biden. So now they're trying to say, oh, fact check, false.
Yeah.
The storm made landfall 4 days ago.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
not this morning.
We showed where Joe Biden was. We showed what he was doing. I mean, the idea that they couldn't get Joe Biden isn't crazy, right? He was on the beach. He was on vacation.
He was available.
Like, remember that picture of Chris Christie when he sat on the beach after he closed the beaches for everyone else?
Yeah.
I mean, that doomed his political career. If Joe Biden was still running for president, this would be it.
Mm-hmm.
This would be done. It would be done.
So they haven't asked for resources, so we're not going to send any more, but the governor can't reach Biden because he's on the beach, and this storm has been a problem for 4 days. Yeah. I'm just putting pieces together here, right?
We expected wind damage and other bits, so we sent linemen and stuff out. We didn't anticipate the flooding, but we're not going to give them any more aid for that. Just gotta wait. It really is disgusting, but it isn't all that surprising. I like to think that we know Joe Biden's corrupt, right? We know his family is corrupt. Sure. Millions and millions funnel into the family from foreign interests. We know that they're corrupt. I always like to think, though, that when push comes to shove, when Americans are suffering, they'll actually do the job. They'll actually focus on what needs to be done and help the people in need. Mm-hmm. It is beyond depressing to see that I was wrong, right? And like they criticized Trump for going down to Puerto Rico and tossing paper towels to people. I mean, what do you give for the president who sat on the beach for days while storm moved its way inland and just destroyed these communities? And then Joe Biden's asked about it today, and he says, "Oh, I was commanding the response."
On the hurricane, Mr. President, why weren't you and Vice President Harris here in Washington commanding this weekend?
I was commanding. I was on the phone for at least 2 hours yesterday and the day before as well. I command. It's called a telephone. All my security people.
Is it not important for the country to see?
Gone.
Wow.
What he gave his answer is, I gave you 2 hours yesterday. I gave you 2 hours the day before that. That was me commanding. And the idea that the governor of Georgia, that it's insane to think that he couldn't get Biden on the phone. By Biden's own admission, he gave a 4-hour window.
Yeah.
Like, of course.
Like, that phone call never ends. They call and you stay in constant contact. In fact, you find a way to stay in contact with them from the moment you can, right? You stood in the National Guard. The president has so much power to do things when it comes to helping the states. So much power. And why wouldn't you sit there and just give off the presidential look of being there for the people? It shows you they have this They just hate the American people. A nasty hurricane hits, and they're too busy. One's raising money, the other's sitting on a beach. Is that all you're worth to them? And the thing is what is your worth? Like, how much is it going to cost to fix everything now? Right? It's got to be billions of dollars, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I can't get it because it's behind a paywall for New York Times. But the new narrative out is that Congress might need to come in for a special session. They're trying to say that Biden's done all he can, and without Congress, he can't do anything more. This is starting to feel more and more like Maui. Right? It's starting to feel more and more like Maui.
Forgotten all about Maui.
Forgotten all about Maui.
Oh my gosh.
It's still burned down. Those people still only got $700 same week that they sent billions overseas to Ukraine. I mean, this is the part that's going to enrage you. Just yesterday, this came out of the White House. Memorandum for the Secretary of State. It came from the White House. Joe Biden, I don't know how he signed it, but I guess it came from him. They wanted you to believe. By the authority vested in me as the president by the Constitution and laws of the United States, including the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961, I hereby delegate to the Secretary of State the authority under Section 506A3 of the FAA to direct the drawdown of up to $567 million in defense articles and services of the Department of Defense and military education and training to provide assistance to Taiwan. So on the same day that the president says, oh, there's no money for North Carolina, they're just going to have to figure it out, or Congress is going to have to come into session, he, with the stroke of a pen, just gave away $500 million in military assistance to Taiwan.
Holy what a crook.
Literally, while it's happening. While Zelensky is still in the U.S. begging for more money. Right? So, we're actually going to get to see it. We're actually going to get to see it happen at the same time. Of people begging for money, the president of the United States saying there is no money for you, and then turning around and saying, oh, I just signed an executive order to move around some numbers to give $500 million of military assistance to Taiwan. If Asheville should hold a referendum and declare itself part of Taiwan, and then they get assistance. This area of North Carolina should hold a referendum, become part of Ukraine, and then they get assistance. But then they get a blank check. Oh, flooding in Ukraine.
Wow.
Oh,
hundreds of billions of dollars for that.
Yeah, spend as much as it takes.
We couldn't take care of Maui. And if they couldn't take care of Maui, what do you think Florida's going to look like? Thank God DeSantis runs Florida, right? At least they've got a Republican governor there who I think will actually get the job done and getting things fixed, at least back, right? And they're probably spearheading it, but he's working his ass off. I'm guessing he's working until he falls over from exhaustion.
Florida is used to this. It never gets easier, but Florida knows what happens when hurricanes hit, right? A lot of wind damage, rising storm surge, right? The infrastructure is, for the most part, designed to survive this. It doesn't always happen, but new builds tend to be built up to code, right? The infrastructure is, as best possible, designed to help mitigate tons and tons of rain. Like Florida's used to this. So when Florida sees a hurricane is coming, they know exactly what to do. Okay, let's stage the linemen outside of the expected path so that when it goes through, the linemen can come in, restore power, right? We can bring the bulldozers in, do all that. When you get into rural Western North Carolina, though, it's a different animal, right? They don't have the experience of dealing with multiple hurricanes a year. This hit them, it just like a freight train, which again is the Biden answer of, we gave them what they asked for and we pre-planned it and they're not getting anything else, while he's giving $500 million to Taiwan. Is just disgusting. It's just disgusting.
And then we have pictures of Zelensky in here signing, the bombs, and getting $150 billion. I was looking at the cost of the estimated fix for this. It's going to be about $100 to $150 billion. That's what it's going to be. How many times have we kicked that over to Ukraine already?
Oh yeah,
6, 7 area.
I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but this area will never rebuild. When hurricane, well, I guess they want you to call it superstorm, Sandy, hit New Jersey, New York, there was an economic rationale for, oh no, we need to get New Jersey and New York back on its feet. I think what you're going to see in Congress is you're going to see a lot of people along party lines too, saying that it might not be worth spending that much money to rebuild Appalachia.
Which blows my mind. Because
Does it though?
the people, well, think about it, man.
These
They're
are
the
people
most
that say,
underserved people out there are in those sections.
they have white privilege. You're forgetting that.
Oh, I missed that one.
That.
But they're the most.
That.
But they're the most at risk, and you know it. And they're going to use it as political pawns.
Except for everyone who isn't white automatically gets above them on the victimhood totem pole.
Maybe, yeah. And they'd be using it as political points, right? In the next election. It does not do Democrats anything good to fix problems because they run on problems.
Oh, yeah.
And they love having this problem show up. Remember when
yeah.
George W. flew over the last hurricane that happened out there, and the media was just all over him for it, right? Hated him.
Yeah.
They wanted to lynch him for it. Like they came out hard, right?
He did that because he didn't want to get on the ground. He didn't want to get on the ground and
get in the way.
Kind of get in the way. Yeah. So Joe Biden sits on the beach. Nothing at all.
Nothing.
The Postal Service has suspended service to 42 zip codes in Georgia, 39 zip codes in North Carolina, and 19 zip codes in Tennessee. The conspiracy theorist in me, how much do you want to bet that the left tries to take advantage of this election wise?
Yeah. I was also thinking that, when one group leaves, another one moves in. And if you do want to talk about getting cheap land on the market all of a sudden.
Yeah. They're gonna, well, we'll have to see. I don't think anyone's gonna move into that area of North Carolina that it's just completely flooded out. And definitely not to claim residency in time for an election. Because we're only 36 days away. I mean, that's the good thing. The good thing is you can't physically do that because in most cases you had to have already been a resident of the state for weeks.
They would just declare a disaster. They'll waive all the stuff. Here's your driver's license.
I'm talking about Georgia. Like, oh, well, they didn't get the mail-in ballots out, so we're going to extend that, or we're going to be a little bit more lenient.
We've got to allow those mail-in ballots. We'll have to because people just won't be able to get out.
They closed down the post office, so we don't know how many people requested mail-in ballots. So let's just send a ballot to everyone. I mean, that's the kind of crap you could expect from these people. I hope it doesn't come. The last thing we really should be worried about is the election after all of this. But you see that there really is, Chandy says in the comments on Rumble, there really is a juxtaposition between Donald Trump bringing supplies, bringing money, and Joe Biden on the beach. I saw something that boggled my mind too. Today on Twitter, well, Donald Trump had pledged $25 million to help in this effort. Now, whether that all comes from him or the consortium of people with him that say they want to help, that's what he said they're going to be bringing into the areas affected by the storm. And one of the first things I saw from the left, was saying he's not allowed to do that. Here is the post from Larry Middleton, proud liberal vermin. No, Trump is not donating $25 million for the storm. His assets are tied up in court, and he has to get permission from the special master to move or spend any. And his campaign money is tied up with court expenses. If you believe that he will donate, you're the stupid one.
Well,
this is the first reaction of Donald Trump promised $25 million. Instead of saying, wow, that's really generous, the first thought from the left is he can't do that. We've tied up his money in these bullshit court cases.
Wow.
Isn't that sick? Isn't that sick?
Yeah, it is. But that's the power they gave the people who don't like him to say and do, right?
206,000
views. Look at all those views. Like there's 200,000 people that saw that, right?
18,000 people liked it. They liked the idea of Donald Trump not being able to help these people because the bullshit court cases have tied up his finances.
Wow, they just hate his guts, don't they? No matter what it is. He's giving away his own cash, people. And they're just like, we hate you. We don't even like you.
These are evil people. And just to be clear, Donald Trump doesn't have a special master. He has a monitor. And the monitor doesn't control what he spends. The monitor reports to the court if he spends anything crazy. does anything crazy, tries to move money in large amounts. If the Trump organization donates millions of dollars to charity a year, it's not a crazy violation for them to say, okay, this year we're going to focus on relief for this hurricane. Like, this is what we're going to do.
Why would you hate the idea of someone giving away part of their fortune to help others? Like, that's the thing that really bugs me, right? I want to help everybody that needs help out there. Every single house, like, we're Americans. We should be spending $100 billion to make sure we do bring back parts of Appalachia that need it. Because it's not whether it's worth doing it. It's we do it because it's our responsibility to those that live there. And if we have a way and a place to do this, we should be there right now. But we get the president sitting his ass on a beach. Kamala Harris giving up herself.
The answer, Josh, again, is the federal government should do a better job. Donald Trump shouldn't be donating $25 million. He should be paying more in taxes so the federal government can take that money and dole it out equitably to people of color first. I mean, that's their thinking. It's craziness. And it would be so on brand for Donald Trump not to be able to help people in need because of the left. Like, that would just be so on brand for them. It really would.
They'd report on it and they'd love it. And their followers will lap it up because they're deep on the Kool-Aid on this one, man. I've never seen this kind of political fervor. And the time in history that you do see it, there's almost always some sort of radical change in government or people or even society, right? So culture, social changes. And that's what makes it really hard, right? Yeah, we're on the precipice of like World War III. At home, domestically, we're more torn apart than ever. I mean, it's the most perfect storm for like causing serious damage to the United States.
Yeah.
And nobody at the wheel.
Well, we have Joe Biden at the wheel. Thank goodness Joe Biden's at the wheel. They asked him another question on the tarmac today. They asked him to respond to Israel striking Yemen. And he gave an interesting answer.
Mr. President, will you deploy more U.S. troops to the Middle East?
Mr. President, has Netanyahu gone too far?
Any comment on the strikes in Yemen, Mr. President?
Both sides have got to settle the strike. Support the collective bargaining effort. I think they'll settle the strike.
What did he say?
It's hard to hear.
Yeah.
The entire line of questioning was, will you deploy more troops to the Middle East? He says no. Has Netanyahu gone too far? Piqued his interest. He walked over. The third question is, what are your thoughts on the Yemen strike? Joe Biden, let's listen. So I want to make sure I get complete.
On the strikes in Yemen, Mr. President?
Strikes in Yemen.
Both sides have got to settle the strike.
I've spoke to both sides. They've got to settle the strike.
Support the collective bargaining effort. I think they'll settle the strike.
I support the collective bargaining effort, and I think they'll settle the strike. He's talking about the Teamsters.
For the dock workers that are about to go on strike and
they
shut
just
down
did.
ports.
Yeah.
Oh!
So he was asked 3 questions about Middle East foreign policy, and he heard the word strike, and he gave an answer about the Teamsters at the docks. So that's the guy who's at the wheel, right? But here's the funny thing. His administration, when they're asked on TV about the strikes, they don't know what the person's talking about.
Where have you been kind of focused and hearing on what would happen if the strike goes, let's say, longer than a week?
Again, I have not been very focused on that.
Whoa. Well, really?
I believe she's in the cabinet. I don't want to get it wrong, but I believe she's in the cabinet. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
You're talking about how we get TVs, fire extinguishers, rubber, cop fittings for your stuff, diapers. Right? Start thinking about all the things that come in by a port.
Yeah.
Right. How many things say Made in China on it?
Commerce Secretary. Gina Raimondo.
Commerce Secretary. Well, hold on. Hold on. Commerce Secretary.
Commerce Secretary. I don't want to get it wrong. I thought she was something else, but I thought maybe she was transportation or something. No, that's Buttigieg.
That's Buttigieg.
Yeah, Commerce Secretary. Not really focused on what happens if the strike lasts longer than a week. So you have Joe Biden in the tarmac answering questions about Middle East strikes, talking about the Teamsters. And then when the Secretary of Commerce is asked point blank about the Teamsters, what do you think about this? Doesn't have says I'm not really thinking about it.
That's a bad look, man.
And this isn't the first time we've heard from her.
Because that's really out of touch. It's just not bad out of touch. It's like willfully ignorant.
This isn't the first time we've heard from her. Remember during the DNC, they released that footage. They released those economic numbers, revising down the job gains under Biden by like 800,000, right?
Yeah,
like close to 1 million jobs that they claimed had actually been made didn't exist.
Yeah,
like a stunning revision. And she was asked about it at the DNC, and this was her answer.
Hear that. Do you potentially think that this new numbers could be a liability for this campaign?
No, when I hear that, first of all, I don't believe it because I've never heard Donald Trump say anything truthful.
It is, though, from the Bureau of Labor.
I'm not familiar with that.
So she says she doesn't believe the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, right? Because Donald Trump said it. And she's like, oh, no, these are real numbers. So this is the Secretary of Commerce doubting the veracity of the Biden administration's reporting, all because Donald Trump called attention to it. So yeah, no, this woman is
she's loyal.
When Trump wins, I don't think she's going to be a holdover.
No. Like I watched that down. These are going to be famous bloopers we're going to watch. Is what happened right before the economy collapsed. We weren't really paying attention to the what the longshoremen were doing. So. Sorry?
Yeah.
We're sorry.
Yeah. No, this is bad. This is bad. Trump calling attention to it hopefully will get them the resources they need. The cynic in me says that this area of Appalachia probably will never be rebuilt. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be rebuilt. It absolutely should. I think you're going to find a lot of people suggesting that it just isn't worth it, which isn't right. But they're going to make arguments for it. They made arguments that it wasn't worth rebuilding like Staten Island, which is crazy.
I know.
Like it's not worth it to rebuild a borough of New York City. Like what? I expect the same arguments to be made now. It is just, you remember when Barack Obama and Chris Christie kind of did a kumbaya hug, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
Think about that versus Joe Biden on the beach.
Yeah.
It's night and day.
Yeah.
Night and day. I didn't like Obama, but you couldn't actually say that he didn't care about wanting to rebuild New York and New Jersey. Obviously, he had political motivations for that trip. That's fine.
Sure.
But you can't say that he didn't care.
Made me feel dirty with that because you're like, I think you're right on that one. He went out there. He did the presidential thing.
Yeah.
I mean, even Democrats then knew that's what you do.
Yeah.
But this administration was just like, nope. Not even going to participate, gang. This is like a quiet quitting, right? They've quit on us.
Joe Biden has quiet quit. He has quiet quit. Yeah. He's at the beach. You'll notice that answer about the strikes, Jill Biden had already gone off camera, so she wasn't there to police him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. Our thoughts and prayers, obviously.
Yeah.
There are lots of organizations. Franklin Graham's organization is the one I think that Trump is working with to help people. So if you want to help contribute, you can go through those organizations. I'm sure the Red Cross will be there. Lots of well-known organizations that will help out in this effort. This part of the country is going to need it, right? And when they finally do start getting back on their feet, it's up to all of us to try and pour some money into these economies. I don't know what would ever bring me to Western North Carolina, but I'll tell you what, if I do find myself there after they rebuild, I'll definitely be spending.
What happened to that part of the American spirit that when something goes bad and it gets destroyed, you come back and you make something that was better than what was there before, right? Because we would look stuff in the eye and say, all right, grand earthquake in San Francisco, let's transform that into one of the greatest port cities that ever existed, right? Why can't we turn the Appalachians into one of the most amazing places that's ever existed in America? Whether it be tech or anything. Where did that go? Where's that spirit that says we want to go back and actually make things good? Right?
It's gone overseas, right? I mean, we're doing that to Ukraine. There's only so much money, right? There's only so much money. And when you're giving endless money to Ukraine, like right now, we are providing unemployment assistance to Ukrainian workers. They like to say that we're just providing old materials, old weapons. No, they are ramping up production. We're buying new bombs and new weapons to send there, but we're also giving unemployment protection. So when a business in Ukraine gets bombed out by a Russian bomb, that
Wow.
and those employees are getting U.S. tax dollars. Wow. Now look at those areas of North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia and realize that we cannot say the same about the business owners and the employees at the shops and stores and factories that were just destroyed by the hurricane. Uh-huh. We will live in a world right now where if you lose your job for a hurricane in North Carolina, you're up shit creek. No extra attention for you.
No.
But if your business has to close because of bombing from Russia and Ukraine, your salary is guaranteed. That's the world we live in.
Wow. Yeah.
That's the world we live in.
Wow, that one really hurt. That one hits you in the gut, right?
We have the money. We have the money, right? We have the money, but we can't keep giving it to Ukraine. We have the money.
No, we don't.
There is a world in this world in the next couple days, we will have illegal aliens using federally provided food stamps to feed themselves and their families, where storm displaced people in North Carolina will have to beg for food because they won't have the magic money card that they just swipe and it lets them take whatever food they want out of the store. Right? This is real. This is 100% real. Right?
And it's all manufactured by leaders.
It's all manufactured by people with the most twisted, warped priorities we've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's America last, which is why Donald Trump talks about America first.
America first. It's a rough go. And I hate when we have to have these kind of conversations, but people need to know this stuff,
Yeah.
Because they're not going to report it to you. If you're not watching it here, where are you getting it? And the answer is nowhere. You can't go to a legacy media. You can't get on your phone and find anything that's even remotely close to the truth anymore.
No.
And we just do nothing about it. We just watch as the world goes by.
Mentioned it on the show. The news cycle has gotten dangerously fast. Like we talked about it, that when Ronald Reagan was shot, it was in the news cycle for weeks.
Yeah.
Donald Trump was shot and the news cycle immediately and deliberately took him out. Right?
Yeah.
The news will not cover this storm. Like we talked about Maui. You're like, wow, I completely forgot about Maui. Yeah, that's by design. Nothing gets fixed if the media can make sure you're not angry about it, right? Move you on to something else. It's the shell game, right? What about What's about East Palestine? What was the one in Ohio?
Yeah, train derailment, filled all those chemicals in the air.
When was the last time you heard about that? There was just a plant in Georgia that went up in flames, spewing toxic chemicals into the air yesterday.
Yep. Again, it was wild. In some of the most beautiful parts of places that food can be grown. I worry that they're just not random sometimes.
Yeah, no.
And the thing that caused the Georgia one was the water sprinkler going off at the wrong time.
Yeah. Oh well, listen. In pool supply stores, like places that build pool supplies, when all of the ingredients are put together, they can go in water. Before that, they cannot.
Right. Because they get violently exothermic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. So violently dangerous to put water on the chemicals before they're properly mixed. It's bad. And it's almost like they don't want us to fix anything because they want us just to be broken.
Hold on. That'd be a perpetual state of disaster, right? It's a perpetual state of disaster. And that causes problems. And every time you got a problem, they come up with that solution, right? I mean, they're constantly causing their solutions to make their way into government, right? I used to think it was some sort of weird conspiracy theory when people would say things like that, but it's true. I mean, it's like Saul Alinsky's playbook come to life, gang. And it's not just playing out. Like it's near the end of their game.
Oh yeah. And
Right?
and listen, Congress is out of session. So you like to think that these are the times when the government can't do things, right? But
Yeah.
we covered at the beginning of the show, Joe Biden says that there is no extra money for him to give. But he
Total
just
shit.
used his federal authority to send $500 million to Taiwan. So it's not just like that he's a bad actor, because he is. Also, the system is designed that on a moment's notice, Joe Biden can give Taiwan $500 million of military assistance, but he can't help Americans that are drowning.
Yeah.
Can't
And he
help
wants you to vote
Americans
for
that are
him.
being burned alive in Maui.
Vote for me. Vote for
And
Joe
I don't
Biden.
know if I don't think voting for one or another changes it. It takes a real systemic change writing into the laws. Why doesn't the FEMA law have the same wiggle room? I mean, like, we know when hurricanes hit, hurricane season every year is when Congress is out of session. We know this. Why isn't there any wiggle room written into the FEMA law the same way there's wiggle room written into the foreign assistance laws?
You know that answer, man. It's because
do.
there's power in the purse strings.
Yeah.
And those who control those purse strings control the world. And
I have an
they're
idea.
power-hungry zealots.
I have an idea.
What?
Let's get some backers, financial backers.
Okay.
We're going to open a plant in Western North Carolina that builds artillery shells, and watch how fast that road gets fixed. If we say we're going to build artillery shells for Ukraine, watch how fast the internet gets restored, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're missing.
Right. Then
The
you get a bunch
answer-
of charging stations. It'll be
Yeah.
great.
The answer to all of this is the military industrial complex. If you want that area
Mhm.
to come back on their feet, you got to put a weapons manufacturing facility there. You got to.
I
You
know.
just got to.
It's sad, but it's kind of like,
Yeah.
when do you want to start? I mean, really? Like, when
Yeah.
do you want to start?
Let's go load bullets. I bet you we can find people that know how to do it.
Oh yeah, and then they'd be very much in
Yeah.
wanting to do it, right? And then you
There's
have a
actually
bunch
a
of hard
market for that.
workers in Appalachia, man. You get some of the cleverest people who are
Yeah.
incredible thinkers and doers.
Yeah.
I know they get a bad rap for, or it's like they're just those redneck types, but no.
There's
I
a
mean,
market
if
for
you
it.
can turn anything into alcohol, you can do whatever you want.
There's a definite market for it. Like, I
Yeah.
went to a gun show a while back and I bought 10 rounds of 7.62 by 54R that were armor piercing incendiary.
For
And I was
you.
like, why? I was like, why do you have this? He's like, oh,
Yeah.
I work with a guy who had a contract to send these to Ukraine for their sniper rifles. And the contract fell through. So it's a 308 bullet. So technically we're allowed to sell it in the United States. Here you go. I don't know where they are, somewhere around my house. But yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
it's a
Wow.
once in a lifetime thing. And I looked up
Yeah.
how much they were selling them for. They
It's
were
gotta be
selling them for
expensive.
like a lot of money. It was a huge contract.
Well,
So
30
yeah,
bucks
there
a
is a room
round.
for mom and pop ammunition loaders to get these contracts. I mean, if you ever see the movie War Dogs, it can get out of
I've seen
control
parts of it
really,
where
really
they're
fast.
running through the
Yeah.
Death's Triangle. They're like,
Yeah.
so it sounds fun. But man, there's been just to wrap, like these guys, there's been nothing presidential out of the president's office.
No.
There's been nothing presidential out of Kamala or Walz, right?
Nope. You
Vice
see,
President.
Walz is the governor of Minnesota. He went to a Michigan game and rooted for Michigan.
He did what?
He says he was seeing the crowd saying, "Go blue, go blue."
Did he know any better?
Yes, he doesn't care. He's running for president. He wants people to see him. He also gave the middle finger to a Trump supporter. That was interesting. You didn't see that one?
If Donald Trump gave the middle finger to anybody, it would be on the cycle for the next 20 days, 39 days.
He'd survive. You know what he'd say? He'd say that they deserved it. They're assholes. Right?
But still,
That's
it
how
would be
he
on
gets
every
out of
night.
these
I'd
things.
see it every night. You'd see a picture of him with his it wouldn't be the fist pump. It would have been the middle finger, right? That would replace him on some poster at CNN. Not the fight. Did he really flip somebody off? Like, and does it play anywhere? Like, is ESPN doing its due diligence on this one? Oh my God!
Here we go. Let's
There's
play
no
it.
way.
Let me put my where's my screen?
I really
Did I
hope
lose
he
my
did,
screen?
because I want to.
Oh, he
share
did.
this with the world.
I mean, the only fact check is that it was his ring finger. Here we go. So they're yelling Trump 2024, Trump 2024, right there.
Whoa!
Yeah,
Whoa!
right there.
Whoa!
Glaringly not the pointer finger. Right? What do you see? He's seeing what? Not the pointer finger. Yeah, he gave the middle finger to a Trump supporter.
Wow. I mean, you never know what you're getting with good old Timmy
Never know what you're
Walls.
gonna get.
He's every day.
Never know what you're gonna get. Couple things I wanted to cover before we leave. Democrats are very worried about Pennsylvania and Michigan right now. Donald Trump has taken the lead, and I think every poll that's been released from Pennsylvania in the last couple days, including Atlas International, who was the closest, best pollster from 2020, showed Donald Trump winning the election, leading everywhere except for I think Nevada and North Carolina, strangely enough. But we also got a podcast from the Democrat running for the Senate, Slotkin, where she admits that the internal polling has Kamala Harris, quote, underwater.
I'm not feeling my best right now about where we are on Kamala Harris in a place like Michigan right now. We have her underwater in our polling.
Now, how far underwater?
Underwater isn't down by 1. Right? So the parlance, you'd say if someone was down by 1 or 2, you'd say that was statistically tied, right? That's how you'd spin that. Yeah. So it's a statistical inside the margin of error. To say underwater suggests 2+ points.
Yeah, like you're
at least from my standpoint.
Right. Well, it's got to be outside the margin of error, right? Because the margin of error, she would say, is still within plus or minus, right? So my guess is they could be -4 or lower if she's thinking underwater.
That's hard to do, but
I want it to be
possible.
That way.
It's possible. I think anything under 2, because realize the margin of error is likely not going to go her way, right? If anything, they're undercounting the Trump support. So we haven't seen a lot of polls where the Democrat actually did better than the poll suggested. It's usually the other way around. But underwater this is from Slotkin running for Senate, saying that Kamala Harris is underwater in Michigan.
Is she an outlier? Like, that's a pretty bold statement out of somebody. Is she playing ball? That's the other thing.
She's running in Michigan. She's invested money in polling, right?
So does anybody react to this besides us?
Yeah, oh yeah. This is making the rounds. This is making the rounds, but it's listen, we all have to vote, we all have to push forward, but things are looking much better for Trump in Pennsylvania, in Michigan. Virginia's looking better. The early vote in Virginia so far is red.
Good Lord.
It's red.
Could you imagine?
Now, things can change, right?
Yeah.
There's lots of ballots sitting on people's like tables that are waiting to get turned in. That's fine. But there are lots of really good signs, but we have to run through the finish line. line. And the last thing I want to show you is this question that Kamala Harris was asked. I think it was an NBA. I think this is an NBA player podcast, something like that. They teed it up for her and said, "How do bills become laws?" Now, Josh, I'm going to give you 15 seconds to explain how bills become laws.
They either originate in the House or the Senate. Somebody comes up with an idea, goes to committee, they vote on it, and then after they say yes, House says yes, Senate says yes, goes to the president. President signs it into law, or he can veto it right there.
And then the House and the Senate can override the veto if they have
override with 2/3 majority after that. Yeah, there it is.
Simple answer. Answer that we've all learned from Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill. I'm just a bill.
Never seen it.
Never?
No. No.
But you know what I'm talking about. I'm just a bill.
Oh, I know. I watched. Yeah, I was an 80s kid. I used to see it every Saturday morning.
Kamala Harris, again, she was Attorney General. She was a senator, vice president, president of the Senate. She answered this question like she was filibustering, trying to run away from it.
Explain how a bill becomes a law.
Okay. I believe that the best way the system works is when the power is with the people to then advocate for their needs and have their needs met. So that's the big macro stepping back, right? One of the ways that the system works to do that the system should work to do that, is we have elected representation who represent the people in these state legislatures, which is where laws get passed, or in Congress, which is where the federal laws get passed. And for the system to work the right way, legislators, these members of a state legislature, let's say your state senator, your state assembly member, or your congressman or your United States senator, will meet with, and they'll have ways of receiving information from the people about what they want. I think it's really important always that we know our power to organize around what we need. And sometimes that'll take the form of writing letters. Sometimes it'll take the form of mass protests.
What the?
To make sure the voice of the people is heard by their representative leaders, who then have as their responsibility to write up some legislation that meets the needs of the people. And then when they write that up, they take a vote in their body, if it's a state house or Congress. And if the majority of the people there agree with it, it becomes a law. So that's how it's supposed to work. And I mean, it does connect to what we were talking about earlier, which is then reminding folks they have a right to expect that their leaders will hear them and take seriously their needs.
Three letters come to mind. Can I say it real quick?
Sure.
W T F. What?
So objectively, she's factually wrong. She just said if the majority of the legislature agree, it becomes law. No, it has to go to the governor or the president.
Yeah.
Right? So objectively, at the end of that entire filibuster, she got the answer wrong, which is stunning. It's stunning, right? But to filibuster it, to say like, oh, well, it might take mass protest. No, someone writes a law. It writes a bill. In fairness, it very seldom is the actual congressman or senator. It's usually someone on the staff or even a lobbyist who writes the bill, gets introduced, gets assigned to a committee votes on it, right? Gets sent to the floor, might get sent to another committee. If it all gets approved, it gets packed into an appropriations package because we don't vote on single bills anymore. And then it's a must pass, or it gets left on the chopping room floor. I mean, like, those are real answers. That was a stunningly bad answer.
Could you imagine putting a piece of paper and a pen in front of her and say, write an essay on it, go on the same thing, what that must be like to read? You know what I mean? There was just gobbledygook there. It's like there was a robot and there was just no hard drive to access, and it was just searching. Yeah. So she must be a master politician then, because if she can filibuster that question on an NB, like, wow.
But that's like, even Trump could answer that question, right? The House and Senate vote on a bill, and if I like it, because that's how he'd answer. Like, he's the first person. If I like it, I'd pass. I'd sign it. If I don't, I'd veto it. And then they get to decide if they want to overturn the veto or not. Like, that's a basic
power of the presidency.
Yeah, stunning. I want to do one more before we break up, because that same interview where she filibustered the easiest question imaginable, we also got a new Kamala Harris accent that dropped. A new Kamala Harris accent, which has also gifted us with one of the best meme formats I've seen in a while. Here we go.
Best friend from kindergarten is still one of my best friends.
That's crazy.
Right? Stacey Johnson.
Yeah, that's dope. I love it.
We used to go to the clubs and heard Father Seville.
Oh my God. Wow.
Play it against new accent. New accent.
Just my best friend from kindergarten is still one of my best friends.
That's crazy.
Right? Stacey Johnson.
Yeah, that's dope. I love it.
We used to go to the clubs and heard Father Seville.
Yeah.
And so the new meme that just dropped. It's just so
up with this stuff.
He's just so uncomfortable about having to listen to her just banter. The new meme format dropped. So you're gonna see this around. Lots of people on X are saying, like, caption this. But this is pretty fitting. And I'm not one with the Black community. I'm not Black, but the people I've talked to who can't stand Kamala Harris, the answers that they give me are pretty much embodied by his reaction right there.
Yeah. Chameleon, the ultra chameleon. She will
Yeah.
be whatever it takes
Yeah.
to be at the right moment, at the right
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And that's
New
the plan,
accent.
I guess.
New accent just right. Can you imagine if Donald Trump went down to Georgia and said, I come with a truckload of generators and water bottles and
Right,
paper
wore a white
towels.
suit and all that stuff. Yeah, the answer
Yeah.
is people have common sense. They usually don't do that because we always
I'm
get
here
to say
with the
Trump.
great Reverend Graham, and we are gonna disperse this aid. We're gonna get this aid high and low, and everyone will get this aid.
It's a revival.
He'd be mocked for it, right? But
Yeah, they
Kamala
hate him
Harris
for it.
walks in to one of these communities. I need her to get into one of these Indian galas. I want it.
I knew you were gonna say
want
that.
it.
Yeah.
I want it so much. I want you to vote for me. Like I want it. I'm craving it. I'm
Like her inner
craving.
Apu comes out. It'd
Yeah.
be crazy cool.
I am craving the code switching for an Indian event. I need it. I need it like I need oxygen.
Yeah, and
Someone
that one's
invite
probably
her.
real. And that will
Invite
just
her.
roll off the tongue with her. Like it'll
Invite
be
her to an
natural.
Indian gala, please.
Right.
Please, Indian fundraiser. I beg of you. The
Then
way
we go back to the
field-
meme of sweating, like wiping the head brow before going to Indian gala.
the way the bill becomes a law, sometimes you have to mass protest. Like what the fuck?
What does that have to do with any of it?
I know.
was trying to
I
follow
know.
that, and it sounded like the rambling of a mad person, but
Yeah,
I just don't think she can think on her feet.
that
at
was
all.
someone who didn't have an answer and was hoping it was going to come to her halfway through.
Yeah, stall
Right?
tactic, right? Like,
But
okay, just keep
how does
talking.
it build? Again, this is Schoolhouse Rock. This is
She's never watched Schoolhouse Rock. She doesn't. She, never
she
had
was a
kids.
senator.
So what? She's too hot. Like she's way up there, man. She went to a private school. She's not some modern family type that just low.
And they gave it to her as such a layup, and she just fell so flat. All right, well that's it for this episode. Debates on tomorrow, so everyone make sure you watch that. Hoping for a JD Vance shellacking of Tim Walz. We'll respond to that on Wednesday when it comes out.
Walz will come out waving his hand. That's my prediction. Waving his hand. So if he waves his hands, Max owes me a steak. If he doesn't come out waving his hands, I owe him a steak.
He's gonna.
I don't care how many deep you think I owe you. So
he's gonna gesticulate. He's gonna be. Yeah. So watch for that. I'll probably release a drinking game. We'll see. That's it for this edition, though, of the podcast. If you like the podcast, subscribe, like, comment, share. We're on X. We're on Rumble. We're on YouTube. Subscribe, like, follow us Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We also have the audio edition of the podcast, so tune in for that. Follow that. We try and make this as audio-friendly as possible. That's it for this edition. My name is Max McGuire.
I'm Josh Hammerlin.
Remember, the fight to take back our country is not over yet, but the only way we win is if we all stamp and fight together. See you next time.
Yeah.